Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our
everyone. My name is Kate Decker, and I'm obsessed with exposing the truth of what happens when we ditch the autopilot, pick our power back, and become the creators of our destiny. And I'm here to remind you that no matter who you are, where you come from, or what you've been through, you deserve to live the life of your dreams. Welcome to the Creator Best Life Radio.
And you guys just saying it, I'm like,
and it will help
so
us
first, before I dive into this episode, I just want to say, as I was running around the beginning of my 20s, trying to find if you're less than 30 doesn't mean that that's when you're young, and if you're over 30 doesn't mean that you're old, like anything like that. And I don't actually see number 30 as like, oh, this is when I'm like old or something like that. So I want that to be super clear. It's just, I know that for me and for a lot of women, 30 feels like this huge milestone. And I remember when I was watching that Friends episode when Rachel turned 30 and like how devastated she was. And
if you are about to turn 30 anytime soon or within a year,
how I feel, so I wanted to come on here. I wanted to share with you.
Tag me, share that you
are
listening to this
couple of the
episode,
things
and
that
tag me
are
and
running
tell
through
me
my
that
head,
you are also on the way to the Dirty 30 Club, because that's how I'm planning my 30s to be.
How this year leading up to my 30th
let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Tag me on Instagram at XOKDecker. I love when you do that. I love when you message me. If
I am asking myself,
haven't subscribed to the podcast, if you haven't submitted a review,
I really feel like this year leading up to my 30th birthday
giving me a
so
5-star review,
pivotal in so
then
many
I can keep
big
these
and
episodes
small ways
coming
that
to
I
you
just
guys.
felt
I love you, I adore you, and I hope
to
out
there on my
see
Instagram
you
and my
or
Facebook
hear you,
group,
or you better say you hear me.
If you'd like to
in the
know,
next
I was
one.
actually
Bye.
shocked that it was like everyone was essentially saying, yes, we want to know. So here we are. I'm sweating, but let's dive into it. Whew. Okay, you guys. So at the time of this recording, I am going to be turning 30 in about 2 months. And I am both excited and also shocked and also scared and all of everything in between, to be honest. The exciting part is that I've been planning my 30th birthday party for the past however many months, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be popping. I'm so excited. We're going to be having a fun theme, and I am just all about parties, so having a big celebration for my 30th birthday feels nothing but right. But also at the same time, I feel so nervous because for me, 30th birthday always felt like this huge milestone. And when I would be thinking about where am I gonna be when I'm 30 and what am I gonna have and what I'm gonna have achieved by then, like it always felt so far. It always felt like, oh my gosh, like duh, of course, I'm gonna like have all of my dreams come true. And many of them have, like, don't take me wrong, but there are also some things where I felt like I thought I would be further, right? And like that's the thought that keeps coming. And I have talked to a couple of my friends who either just turned 30 or are about to turn 30, or some of them even 27. And we've been having these thoughts of, holy crap, I am not as far as I thought as I would be. So I'm going to share with you a couple of my thoughts. I'm going to share vulnerably, and I'm going to also tell you what am I doing with it, because I'm not here to complain. I'm not here to throw a pity party. I love throwing a party, but if there's one I do not throw, it's a pity party. But I will be also very transparent at the same time. I'm not gonna be here painting the picture of how everything is rainbow and unicorns and I am like the proudest that I could be or whatever. So the very first thing that changed for me this year, knowing that I will be turning 30 in January, was I started looking at things differently. So I would say that majority of my 20s, I was really focused on my goals, and specifically money goals, because I grew up in a family that we had enough to go by, but we didn't have the good things. We didn't have the cool things per se. We were not the wealthy ones. We were not going for vacations, right? Like the first time I saw sea was, I don't know, I think it was like 12 or something, right? The first time that I flew ever, I was 15. So we were not very well off, but we were not completely poor either. But that's also, I would say, why a big part of my 20s, I was really focused on let's just not be broke, right? Let's make bank, let's make money. And that kind of directed my focus. It was definitely a decade of me taking insane, crazy risks, doing insane things in terms of my work and all of that stuff. And I'm so proud of myself for taking the risks, right? Like I became an entrepreneur when I still lived in Czech, and I took out a huge loan, and I invested heavily into myself, into my business, and I learned so freaking much. I also learned that trusting other people over my intuition is not a good way to go. And then I came to the US, and then eventually I started my own coaching business, right? And again, I invested into myself heavily. If you guys don't know the story, I invested $35,000 in full for business coaching when I was still making about $400 per month in my business. So I had no idea how's it going to come back, how's it going to happen. And I'm just so proud of myself that I really took so many risks, and then I learned so much from it. And I would do it all over again, no doubt. No doubt at all. Some things worked out perfectly. Like I was able to grow my business, and essentially the second year of business, I hit over $2,000 in cash, which was amazing, right? And like I have had multi-six-figure business since then, which is freaking amazing, and I'm so proud of that. But majority of my motivation back then during my 20s was around money, and really approaching this 30th milestone, my motivation started changing and shifting. So I always was the person who preached, obviously, live the life that you want to live, right? Be happy now. Don't wait for later. Don't wait until you have the money, until you have the house, until you whatever, right? Like, let's not wait, because tomorrow never comes. When tomorrow comes, it's gonna feel like today, and that's the day that you have. So let's make the most out of it. But approaching this 30th milestone, I really started questioning every freaking thing. With everything that I did and everything that I do, I kept asking myself, is this making me happy? Do I feel happy right now? This right here, is this actually making me happy? You guys, I actually feel like I went through a complete identity crisis and makeover, because at one point, I didn't even know what actually makes me happy and what doesn't, which was weird and scary in the moment, but it feels so good on the other side of it. So in my business, I changed everything. I went from launching every single freaking month to essentially saying I am going to have 2 big signature programs, and my launch, have 2, 3 top 4 big launches throughout the year, and in between, sure, there might be like a 101 or like a mastermind or something small, but my focus is going to be on those big launches, and there's going to be time and space in between. So that completely changed, because previously I would be launching like 1 program per month, or at least a workshop, and sometimes both. Sometimes I was launching a program and a paid workshop and a free masterclass. So it was very, very busy. And questioning, is this making me happy right now in this phase of my life, walking into the 30s? That was very clear. No, I want to have even more space. I want to have even more freedom. I want to have the time and space for my family. I want to have a business that supports my life, how I actually want to live it. No, I don't want to have 2-3 calls per day. I want to have 2-3 calls per week, right? And like, those were big, scary changes, because I essentially cut down on my private clients, essentially cut down on how many things I was launching. Like, I cut down and cut back on everything so that I could restructure things in the way that truly serve me and my joy and my happiness. which, especially after you've built a successful business with that, I don't know if I want to say busyness. Like, I always work those 5 to 6 hours per day or something. I wasn't crazy overworking, but it was much more full and more busy. So going from that and really cutting back and completely shifting into so much spaciousness that there is barely ever anything on my schedule, it felt scary. And it still feels scary because there are sometimes the voices in my head that are like, oh my gosh, Kate, are you crazy, right? Or even taking that 6-week time to travel. Like, I went to see my family in Czech. I went to see my brother in Italy. I spent 4 weeks alone in Bali. And I wasn't launching anything. I wasn't really selling anything. And it felt insane. It felt like I'm going crazy having this much space in between, but at the same time, this is what I always knew that I wanted at some point. And right now, that's the time and the phase of my life. So I started questioning, is this making me happy, right? What actually brings me joy? And I would be on a walk and I'd be listening to a podcast and I would ask myself, is this actually making me happy? Is this something that's bringing me joy? I don't want, to just constantly be torturing myself with education and learning more and becoming the best version of myself. Sure, but also there must be time to live that version of yourself that you are. I started asking myself, how do I want to be spending my mornings? We have this, big yard and we have a pool and it's nice and warm in Florida. How do I want to bank on this? Because if I'm spending my days closed in an office, that doesn't feel like a dream to me. That doesn't feel like a true joy to me. So how do I actually want to experience this, right? So that's when I started shifting that my morning routine actually partly takes place outside, where I drink my smoothie and I'm watching the sun and I'm watching my dog run around and I'm watching the freaking squirrels that are so hilarious and make weird sounds, as it turns out, right? And the birds and everything. And then I would start really finishing my work earlier, so I would be very much non-negotiable. Nothing gets scheduled on my schedule after 4 p.m. so I can jump into that pool and I can have fun and I can have a cocktail or a mocktail with my husband. And I started baking more. I started having really more and more fun with baking. I made my, I loved baking even before, but this year I think I made more cakes and pies and cupcakes and everything than ever because it just brings me so much joy. And I made my husband's birthday cake and I decorated it and it was so gorgeous. I was impressed. Everyone was impressed. And it was just so fun to do that, right? And now recently I started actually cooking again. You guys, I've been saying for a really long time that I just don't cook. And it's not because I don't know how to cook. I just didn't want to do it. It felt annoying. It felt like something I had to do. It felt something that was just a means to actually getting food into my mouth, which felt completely just, not productive, dumb. I didn't want to do it. And now I started loving cooking. I'm making my own bone broth and I'm making jamu, which is an Indonesian cleansing drink that I drink every morning. And I make a lot of food from scratch and fresh, and I am loving it. And I don't know how long this phase is going to last, but it feels so beautiful because every single one of these things that I'm doing, oh my gosh, it's 2:22 as I'm recording this, of course. Every single one of these things that I'm doing feels like I'm actually allowing myself to slow down in order to speed up, right? So I'm allowing myself to actually experience my life and be where I am and be happy with it and go on walks with my dog and just sit in the backyard and enjoy the fruits of my labor that I have put in before, whether that is with actual work or with manifestation or with the work that I'm doing on myself so that I can see all of these amazing and incredible miracles and blessings, right? So I'm allowing myself to enjoy it. And on one part, it feels very uncomfortable to my nervous system because it feels like, Kate, you should be doing something, you should be productive. Oh my gosh, how are you not educating yourself or doing something or selling something or creating something? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you have to be doing something. This is not okay, right? That inner voice sometimes kicks in. But at the same time, I feel my entire body, my entire nervous system relaxing. It's like leaving that fight or flight, like I need to fight for my life energy that I actually unconsciously carried with me through my 20s. Because you guys, when I was 18, 19, 20, I would say until 22, 23, I was constantly in that fight or flight mode. I didn't know if I was going to have money to buy food or not. I didn't know if I'm going to make a rent. I didn't know if I'm going to be able to pay my bills. Like, it was very, very stressful. And even though my circumstances, my situation changed and it allowed me to relax more consciously, there was still that unconscious, fight or flight. You have to run for your life, which I think a lot of us experience in their 20s, especially if this is the first time that you are completely responsible for yourself and you need to make it work, right? So I started asking myself, what brings me joy? What makes me actually happy? What is something that I enjoy in the moment and not just because this is going to lead to something good, right? I'm very particular about it. Like, even last night, I was coloring. I haven't done that in years. I loved it as a kid, and it's been so long since I did that. So I decided I'm gonna color and I'm gonna just be here. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna have fun with it. And these things are not only helping our inner child and healing our inner child, but they're actually healing to us, to our soul right now, right? I did a lot of inner child healing, and not just through digging deep and what is something that I need to heal, but just taking care of myself and not judging myself. If I want to have a go-go squeeze for my snack, or if I want to have some puffy things that normally kids eat, when it felt right, I just did it. If I wanted to have mac and cheese with cut up hot dogs, even though it's quote unquote food for kids, I don't care. I'm gonna do it. If I wanted to camp on a floor, I just did it, and I don't care if it's for kids. It felt so healing and accepting to every part of me, including my inner child. And that's the subtle work. It didn't take effort. It didn't take journaling. It didn't take I need to learn all of these things. It just was, this feels so freaking good. Accepting that part of myself. I even started watching more Disney movies because actually at one point I hated watching Disney movies because it made me feel childish. And there was the inner part of me that had to grow up really quickly at the age of 15 that felt like that's not acceptable, that's not okay. So I allowed my child to come out to play and to have fun and to be accepted and loved as it is. Right? Isn't that wild? This is the work that I'm doing as I'm stepping into my 30s. I'm allowing myself to be a kid and to express myself as a child. But if not now, then when, right? Am I going to be doing this for the first time when I'm 30, when I'm 40, when I'm 50? There's no judgment and there's no such a thing as being late, but I decided to do it right now. So I started asking myself, is this making me happy? Is this actually bringing me joy? I started reprioritizing me living life and having fun and enjoying myself and doing the things that I love outside of work. I started reading books that are not personal development. I read so many silly romance books this year, and again, so freaking healing, so fun, so playful. And I restructured my business to the way that really works for me. And I probably already released an episode, or I'm going to release an episode depending when you're listening to this, about how I changed my business and why. So definitely go check it out. And if it's already out, I'm going to list it also in the show notes. But my point here is that these were the questions that I started asking myself, and they shifted so much for me. And some of them were really hard to ask myself because, oh my gosh, you guys, like, okay, vulnerable part. I actually started questioning if I'm enjoying my work. I would look at my husband, who is so freaking obsessed with being a pilot and being an instructor, and he loves it with his whole heart. Like, he's having so much fun doing it. And I caught myself in my work and in my business that I wasn't loving it. I wasn't loving every part of it. I felt tired. I felt exhausted. I hated teaching things on like a live Facebook live. Like I loved it for the information and the transformation that it provided, but I wasn't having fun with it. And that was so hard to face because this was new. It's not like it's been like this all along. It just, now it was this way. I wasn't having fun with it. And I wasn't having fun teaching only about money and business and how to make your first 5K, even though there's something that I'm passionate about and fascinated about. It just started feeling empty. So I had to ask myself, like, what do I want to do? What do I truly, like, what is the thing that I want to share with the world the most? What is the thing that I truly want to do? What is the thing that I'm completely obsessed about? And that's when I took the time for, I called it the Sparkle Sabbatical, right? I took a week off, completely off social media. I actually gave my assistant all my passwords. I told her to change it and essentially lock me out of my social media, of all of it. And I just spent the time alone in our new house that was completely empty. I only had a mattress on the floor and one really cheap $30 stool from Walmart, which I'm actually sitting on right now, that I used as like my chair. So my office was essentially like the bar, the kitchen bar. So I had the bar chair, and that's where I was like sitting and doing things. And then I was sitting on the floor and I was sleeping on the mattress on the floor, right? So I was here alone for a week, like really diving deeper into what the heck do I want to do? What is my message? What is the thing that I want to be truly teaching people? What is the biggest thing that I want to, like, what is the mark that I want to leave here, right? And that's when I first came out with Success Academy. And I knew that that was going to be a huge part of it. That's why I decided to relaunch this podcast at, Create Your Best Life. That's when I decided to actually start a completely new Instagram and focus it on creating your dream life, which does include having your dream business. But it's like with a different approach, right? It's the approach of, I want to be so deeply satisfied and happy and fulfilled. And it just so happens I am also making all of this money on the side of my life, right? Not as like a side business, but like my life is first and my business is part of it that I love, that I adore, and it makes money and it helps people. And like, it's just this beautiful blend, but it doesn't feel like my business is just my life, because I knew that I didn't want that. Right? So I completely shifted. I ditched my 5,000 follower old Instagram and I created a new one completely from scratch. I ditched a whole bunch of programs that I used to launch and I used to sell, decided I'm not going to do it, and created a completely new Success Academy. And now we also have FUNtastic Business Academy, which is my second big signature program, all about business and creating your dream business that like feels so fun and playful and joyful, and it works. And it's like literally, the point of that program is to find your unique recipe to create your multiple six-figure business while honoring that life part, right? And there are a couple of things and a couple of surprises that I'm gonna be opening up before the end of the year. So, hint, little sneak peek. But overall, like, this is what I decided. I decided to shift it, and I definitely felt like that was an insane move. You guys, I took so much time off this year, like I've never taken off before. I created such a strong boundaries that I And when someone messages me on the weekend, if I'm having a weekend off, I just message back, hey, I'm going to get back with you on a Monday, right? Or if someone is crossing my boundaries, there is like, it's non-negotiable. Or if someone reaches out maybe too late at night and I have a boundary that's the time with my family or with friends, or maybe because I am visiting my family, it's a non-negotiable, because that comes first. And it was really, really hard restructuring that, not only to put the things and structures in place, but to put them in my brain that that's okay, that that's safe, that I am not going to go bankrupt, that things are going to work out, that I'm going to call in the perfect clients. And I did. I mean, in our first round of Success Academy, we have, I believe, 8 women. And that's like the very first round when no one knew really what to expect. And that's huge, huge, huge success, right? And we are going to be soon coming into the launch of FUNtastic Business Academy. We might be actually launching at the time that I'm releasing this. But we already have like half of the spots, if I'm not mistaken, over half of the spots actually taken already for this very first round of FUNtastic Business Academy. So it took a lot of trust, a lot of faith, a lot of tuning in, and a lot of hard questions, because looking at what you've built and being like, oh, I don't want to be teaching this. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be doing this way. This is not fun. This is not fulfilling. It hurts. It really hurts, because from all of a sudden it feels like your world is crumbling and that you don't know who you are and what you're doing. And I went through that dark night of the soul or whatever, but it felt scary. It felt really, really scary. Well, and then the last but not least part about, not feeling good where I am in my life, because I had an idea of where I thought I would be by the age of 30, and I'm not all the way there. And this is something that honestly is the most vulnerable part for me to share. So I've saved it kind of towards the end so that only the people who really want to know are going to listen to this. But yeah, you guys, I always thought that I would become a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And it feels like a really harsh truth that it hasn't happened yet. And it's easy to feel like a failure when you didn't hit the financial goals and the financial milestones that you thought that you would. And our savings account doesn't look how I thought that it would look. Obviously, because if I was counting on being a millionaire, there was a couple of hundreds of thousands or more in our savings, right? And it's just things like that that feels hard to face, because there was something that I was so convinced that it was going to happen. And when I kind of saw that it wasn't quite happening this year, as I was restructuring, as I was changing, I honestly felt bad. I felt like I failed my entire life. From all of a sudden, I felt like, what is the point of having any goals? I haven't achieved the biggest one that I set for myself. And what if, none of it is ever going to happen? What if I'm never going to be successful? What if I'm never going to be actually truly wealthy? What if I am not going to be able to provide what I want for my kids? What if, what if? And I went down that rabbit hole of a lot of what if scenarios that were making me feel worse and worse and worse. And then another goal that I always had and I thought that I would have achieved by the time I'm 30 was having shredded 6-pack abs, right? And I just felt like, oh my gosh, how did it happen that I'm almost 30 and I never fully put it as a priority? Like, that's something that I've always wanted. That's something that I thought I knew how to do and how to get. And turns out I didn't, and turns out I haven't achieved it yet, right? And obviously it reflected on my self-confidence and self-trust. of, again, feeling like a failure, feeling like I cannot stick with what I desire, that I'm lazy, that I'm not willing to do the work. Oh my gosh. And that came up with the money thing as well. It's like, you are just lazy, Kate. You didn't do enough. You weren't enough. You didn't do enough. You are lying to yourself that by leaning more into this like freedom and spaciousness that you're gonna make more money. Like, how do you expect this is going to happen? And like all of this stuff started coming out. And gosh, that was ugly to face that and see it and not run away from it, because it would be so easy to run away. It would be so easy to just turn the other way or turn on a Netflix show or stuff my face with chocolate or some other stuff, right? And I didn't. And then from all of a sudden, I got a baby fever. And from all of a sudden, I started feeling like, damn it, I want to have a baby. I'm ready. Oh my gosh, right? And that another thought of like, oh my gosh, Kate, not only you're not a millionaire, not only you don't have the dream body that you always thought you would have, but you don't even have a baby. Like, you don't even have an excuse that at least you have a baby. And I know that sounds horrible, but our inner voice, the main one, does not sound good, and it does not sound politically correct, and it does not honor any sort of trauma, right? It sounds harsh, and that's exactly how it sounded in my head. And if you remember, I got food poisoning sometimes in the spring. I don't remember exactly when it was, and a couple of people asked if I was pregnant, and I went through the panic of, holy crap, what if I'm pregnant? And then to find out that I'm not, and going through, honestly, like a mild depression that I am not pregnant. Even though I wasn't planning on having a baby, even though at that point, actually, I didn't even want to have a baby. That was pre-baby fever. And if I am being honest, when we got married, Zach and I remember that I wanted to have a baby before I'm 30. And then I just kept pushing the can, more down the road. And I couldn't imagine how would it be to have a baby. And I didn't want to have one just yet, because it felt like I am not ready. I'm not set up. I don't have enough money. I haven't worked enough. I blah, 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 blah. All of these things, right? And then in May, we were moving again, and it was really, really hard leaving all of our friends behind and feeling like, crap, I'm going to be 30 and I'm starting from scratch again in a new place with no friends, with no support, with no family. And Zach and I were having a really hard time because we were both struggling. It was a lot. It was stressful. We had so much on our plate, and we honestly didn't know how to handle it, and we started fighting. And that was just like, one of the last kicks, like when you're already feeling down and it feels like it's just not stopping. And I was going through this identity crisis. I was honestly questioning everything in my life. I told you at the beginning, I was questioning, is this making me happy, right? With everything that I did. And I did that for our relationship as well. And I realized that so many things did not make me happy, that so many things did not feel good or right. And part of it, honestly, was his military career, because I don't talk about it all that much, but it is hard to be a military spouse. And a lot of times people don't acknowledge that, right? People salute to those soldiers, and I respect them so much. And like, sure, they're doing so much, but gosh, it is heavy and hard on the people who are staying behind at home. And not very many people see that. And actually, it was on New Year's when we were ringing in 2022, we met this guy, and he was saying something, and he essentially ended up saying like, oh no, your wives are not the heroes. You guys are the heroes. They're just home. And it felt so hurtful because it was after a year that was so freaking hard being the person who's at home. And I'm not here to complain, but I just wanted to kind of paint the picture. So we're having a really hard time. We were having a hard time communicating. We were fighting about things. I was questioning whether our relationship makes me happy, whether this is even right for the both of us, because Zach is a wonderful human, but I just felt like it was not working how I always imagined my relationship to be working, which was shocking to me as well, because before then I haven't had that thought at all. So in a true Kate fashion, I started talking to Zach and shared my concerns and how serious they were, and we actually took some relationship course and we started communicating more, and for a time it actually got worse before it got better. We started doing couples therapy and counseling, and I started learning more about masculine and feminine energy, and honestly, if what you crave and you desire is a man in his masculine, because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to have my man to be completely in his masculine and take lead and take charge. But because I wasn't giving him the space to be that, because I turned into a complete control freak and needing to lead everything, which partly that's what having your own business and being the spouse at home who needs to take care of everything and essentially be in charge of everything, like that's kind of what was pushing me towards that, and I was not paying attention to it. So if you want a recommendation for your man to be in more masculine energy, if that's something that he's looking for, I highly recommend the book I think it's called Mr. No More Nice Guy, or No More Mr. Nice Guy, or something like that. I can list it also in the resources. That was super, super helpful. And I started reading Queen's Code, and honestly, that book brought me to tears so many times, and I cannot recommend it enough. I recommend it to literally every single woman that I see around, because it completely changed how I see men, it changed how I see myself, and it completely changed, honestly, our relationship, because now I feel like we are completely two different people in a relationship. Wow, I'm sharing so much more than I was planning on, but we're doing it. We're going into it, you guys. So yeah, so our relationship gets so much better, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so proud of us that we are still continuously doing the work to better each other, so that we are our best versions of ourselves for our relationship, and then we're truly working as a team. And I've been shocked and surprised, and honestly, in Bali, one of the things that anytime when something was going wrong, I was grounding myself in the gratitude for our relationship, which honestly just, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, that would not be the case. That would not be the thought that puts me at ease, makes me feel better, right? So anyway, that shifted, and as I said, like, we're not making this a pity party, but I wanted to open up and really share with you that even though sometimes it seems like people have perfect lives, and I am so happy and so grateful for my life, there can be still things that we are dealing with, that we're handling in the back end, that no one can see. So to kind of bring this to a conclusion, I think it's very normal and natural to, when approaching a big milestone, maybe big milestone as far as your age goes, that we freak out, because it's a good opportunity to reflect. And honestly, at the end of every year, like in the fall time, that's the time when the biggest shifts happen. That's the time when I make the most money. That's the time when I have the most brilliant ideas. That's the time when just everything starts falling into place, right? A lot of times I feel like my year might look like everything is falling apart, and then at the end it just feels like everything is falling into place. I had that year in 2019, like that entire year looks like everything was just falling apart, and then it fell into place in terms of my business. This year I feel like my identity was falling falling apart all year long, and now it's all finally coming into place, and it's falling into place better than I could ever think. Not to mention, you guys, for those of you who are human design junkies, I am a 4/6, so I'm a projector and I'm 4/6, so turning 30 is huge. And I am moving into that, a role model role with a bang. So the bottom line is that even coming to the end of the year, and it's so, oh my gosh, like, of course I was born in January, right? Coming to the end of the year, you might have all kinds of shadows and shit coming out and trying to get you. And my best advice here is for you to look at them as opportunities, because a lot of times we really learn through contrast. And if I did not go through all those identity crises this year, I don't think I would really form myself into who I am. And I can honestly say I am so proud of the person that I've become. I am so proud of who I am as a friend. I'm so proud who I am as a wife. I am so proud who I am as a woman. I am so proud and so clear in what are my values? What is my integrity? Like, what do I want in life, and how do I want to experience my life? Not just how it looks on paper, not just how it looks on pictures, but like, how do I want to feel it, and how do I want to experience it, so that when I look back, I feel proud. I feel like, damn, I did it. And sure, I did not create a $1 million company, but that's okay, because it does not mean anything. I have created more abundance than actually I thought when I was 18 or 19 or 20. I honestly don't even remember my 20th birthday, because in Czech, when you turn 18, that's when you become a full adult. And I do remember that birthday. And 10 years ago, I can confidently say I was the person who was trying to figure out, am I going to have money for food or not? And I was sharing an apartment with 5 other girls. And I was going to college that I did not enjoy. And I only honestly applied so that I could move away from our house, away from my home. And I was in between relationships, completely lost, completely needy, unhappy, bitter, not a good friend. I didn't trust myself at all. I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. I haven't traveled yet by that time. And this is not an episode to sum up what happened in my 20s, and I might do one of those after I enter the 30th club. But my point here is that it's so easy to panic when we are right before some sort of finish line and think that we are not enough, not good enough, that we haven't achieved enough. And as I said, sometimes we are learning through contrast. Sometimes the contrast and the discomfort really shows us the areas where we do need to shine some light, and that's okay. And if we don't run away from that discomfort and we face it and we look at it, it will actually either help us be more real with ourselves, in the sense of actually like admitting, like, this is what matters to me, or this is what does not matter to me. I just thought that it does. And it helps us navigate us to how to move forward. So, am I scared to move forward and turn 30? Yes and no. I am very excited for the party, and I am very proud of all the changes and shifts and everything that I did this year. But also at the same time, I'm like, oh Lord, please, I hope I'm done with all of my identity crises. And that was just going to be clear and not confusing. And also, I really, truly hope that the mean voices of telling me that I'm a freaking failure, that they're just going to take a nap and they're gonna, wait it out in the back. But I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna be. I don't know how it's gonna unfold. I don't know. And I think that's okay. And I think everyone once in a while feels like a failure, feels like we're just not nailing it. And the question really isn't, if you are or you aren't, how much evidence you have that you're a failure, or how much evidence you're lacking that you actually are a success. None of it really matters. What matters is always, who do we choose to be from now on? How do we choose to approach ourselves and our life? How do we choose to see ourselves? Because when we see ourselves as failure, we will show up differently going to the future. And believe it or not, we get to choose our identity, how we see ourselves, how we act, how we react, and who do we be. And sometimes having that fire under our butt that we are running up to that milestone is a good fire that really makes us discover what we're capable of and what are we made of. And sometimes it is also for us to see that even if we don't achieve that one big thing, that we're gonna be okay, that we're gonna live, that we're gonna survive, and it will help us loosen up that attachment, that neediness, right? As I was running around the beginning of my 20s trying to find a guy because I felt incomplete and I felt needy and all of that stuff, and it wasn't working. The same way, if we're running around and feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to achieve this financial milestone, or I need to buy a house, or I need to do this or that, it's not gonna happen if we are being all needy and desperate. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you are about to turn 30 anytime soon or within a year, let me know. Tag me, share that you were listening to this episode, and tag me and tell me that you are also on the way to the Dirty 30 Club, because that's how I'm planning my 30s to be. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Tag me on Instagram at xokdecker. I love when you do that. I love when you message me. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, if you haven't submitted a review, if you do, it will mean the world to me, giving me a 5-star review, because then I can keep these episodes coming to you guys. I love you, I adore you, and I hope to see you or hear you, or you better say you hear me, in the next one. Bye! Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you absolutely loved it, please let me know by leaving a short review here on the podcast app, and take a screenshot of the episode and tag me on your Instagram stories at xokdecker so that I can keep your favorite topics coming. And until next time, let's create your best life.